In the early years of the second decade of the 21st century, the city of Atlanta, Georgia, found itself standing at a crossroads between its storied past and an ambitious vision for the future. Atlanta had always been a city defined by reinvention. From the ashes of the Civil War to its transformation into a major economic and cultural hub of the American South, Atlanta learned, time and again, how to rise, rebuild, and dream bigger than before. It was within this spirit of reinvention that, in 2013, a bold announcement echoed through City Hall, sports media, and the hearts of football fans across the state. Atlanta would build a new stadium, one that would not merely replace an aging structure, but would redefine what a sports arena could represent in the modern era of the National Football League. At the center of this vision stood Arthur Blank, a self-made billionaire whose life story mirrored the American dream. Born in Queens, New York in 1942, Blank built his fortune as the co-founder of Home Depot, transforming a simple idea into one of the largest home improvement retail chains in the world. In 2002, he purchased the Atlanta Falcons, inheriting not just a football team, but a fan base hungry for success and a city eager for a symbol of dominance on the national sports stage. Over the years, Blank made it clear that his commitment to Atlanta went far beyond profits and balance sheets. He spoke often about legacy, community, and building something that would endure long after his time. By 2013, it was evident that the Georgia Dome, which had opened in 1992 and hosted countless memorable events, including Super Bowl Getty's Fate and the 1996 Olympic Games, no longer reflected the aspirations of the franchise or the technological demands of modern sports entertainment. Though once considered state-of-the-art, the Dome now felt dated, constrained by an era that had already passed. For Blank and the Falcons organization, standing still was not an option. The NFL was evolving. Stadiums were becoming architectural marvels, and Atlanta needed a venue that could compete with the newest and most spectacular arenas rising across the country. The decision to move forward with a new stadium was not just a business calculation. It was a statement of intent. The project would be ambitious, expensive, and symbolically loaded. The chosen location spoke volumes. The new stadium would rise in downtown Atlanta, adjacent to the Centennial Olympic Park, a place forever etched into the city's memory as the heartbeat of the 1996 Summer Olympics. That global event had placed Atlanta under the watchful eyes of the world, and now, more than 2 decades later, the city sought to reclaim that sense of international prominence through a new kind of monument. Construction officially began in May 2014, marking the start of a massive undertaking that would reshape the skyline and test the limits of modern engineering. With a final cost exceeding $1.6 billion, the stadium quickly became one of the most expensive sports venues ever built in the United States. Every dollar invested carried expectations of excellence, innovation, and return, not just financially, but culturally and emotionally. For Atlanta, this was not simply about football, it was about identity. The architectural vision behind the stadium was entrusted to Bill Johnson, a respected figure in the world of sports design. Johnson and his team were given a clear mandate: create something the world had never seen before. The result was a design that felt both futuristic and symbolic. The retractable roof, inspired by the mechanics of a camera shutter, consisted of 8 triangular panels that opened and closed in a smooth, almost hypnotic motion. It was more than a functional feature. It was a statement, a reminder that this stadium was meant to capture moments, freeze memories, and frame history as it unfolded on the field below. Inside, innovation reached unprecedented levels. At the heart of the stadium hung a colossal circular video board stretching 360 degrees around the interior, an engineering marvel that instantly became the largest of its kind in the world. This massive screen transformed the way fans experienced the game, ensuring that no matter where one sat, the action was always within sight, larger than life, impossible to ignore. Surrounding it all was cutting-edge technology designed to enhance comfort, connectivity, and immersion, from high-speed Wi-Fi to advanced sound systems that made every cheer echo with amplified intensity. Yet, Even as steel beams rose and concrete foundations were poured, the project was not without challenges. Construction delays, budget concerns, and logistical hurdles tested the patience of city officials and fans alike. Each delay sparked debates in local media, with critics questioning whether the investment was justified and supporters defending the long-term vision. Through it all, Arthur Blank remained a steady presence, publicly reaffirming his belief that greatness required patience and courage. By the summer of 2017, anticipation reached a fever pitch. After years of planning, construction, and speculation, the moment Atlanta had been waiting for finally arrived. On August 26, 2017, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium officially opened its doors. The naming rights agreement with Mercedes-Benz added another layer of prestige, aligning the stadium with a global brand synonymous with luxury, performance, and innovation. From the outside, the structure gleamed like a futuristic fortress, while inside, it felt almost sacred, a modern temple dedicated to competition, spectacle, and communal emotion. The atmosphere on opening day was electric. Players walked the field with visible awe, their footsteps echoing in a space designed to magnify every movement. Fans filled the seats, many of them lifelong supporters who had endured decades of near misses, heartbreaks, and unfulfilled promises. For them, this stadium represented hope, the belief that a new home could usher in a new destiny. Executives, politicians, and media figures spoke openly about a new era for Atlanta sports, a chapter defined not by potential, but by achievement. Yet beneath the celebration, a quieter narrative lingered, whispered among the city's older residents and longtime fans. Atlanta, they remembered, had a complicated relationship with greatness. Time and again, the city had reached extraordinary heights, only to suffer devastating falls. From sports collapses to historical tragedies, there seemed to be an unspoken pattern. Whenever Atlanta built something too grand, too ambitious, the cost was never merely financial. It was emotional, almost spiritual. These murmurs did not dominate the headlines, nor did they dampen the initial excitement, but they hovered in the background, like a shadow cast by the stadium's towering frame. The Mercedes-Benz Stadium stood as a promise, a declaration that Atlanta was ready to claim its place among the elite. At the same time, it carried the weight of expectation, the burden of proving that this time would be different. As the sun set over downtown Atlanta on that opening day, the stadium lights illuminated the surrounding streets, reflecting off the glass and steel like a beacon. It was impossible not to feel that something significant had begun. Whether the future would fulfill the promise of greatness or repeat the city's haunting cycles of rise and fall remained uncertain. What was clear, however, was that Atlanta had once again dared to dream on a colossal scale. And in doing so, it had built not just a stadium, but a symbol, one that would define an era and test the soul of a city that had always believed it was destined for more. Long before the doors of the Mercedes-Benz Stadium ever opened, before its futuristic roof unfolded over downtown Atlanta, and before fans could call it home, the Atlanta Falcons stood on the brink of destiny. It was a moment that seemed almost scripted by fate itself, a night when everything the franchise had ever hoped for appeared within reach. February 5, 2017, was supposed to be remembered as the crowning glory of a team that had waited decades for redemption. Instead, it became one of the most painful and haunting chapters in the history of American sports. The stage was the NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas, a massive arena filled with more than 70,000 spectators and watched by millions around the world. Super Bowl LI was more than just another championship game. It was a clash of narratives. On one side stood the Atlanta Falcons, a franchise founded in 1965 that had known flashes of brilliance but had never truly ruled the league. On the other stood the New England Patriots, the modern dynasty of the NFL, led by quarterback Tom Brady and head coach Bill Belichick, a duo already etched into football immortality. For Atlanta, the journey to that night had been extraordinary. Under the guidance of head coach Dan Quinn and offensive coordinator Kyle Shanahan, the Falcons had unleashed one of the most explosive offenses the league had ever seen. At the heart of it all was quarterback Matt Ryan, a calm and methodical leader who, throughout the 2016 season, played the best football of his career. His precision, confidence, and command of the offense earned him the NFL Most Valuable Player award, announced just one day before the Super Bowl. Everything seemed aligned. This was Atlanta's time. From the opening kickoff, it became clear that something unusual was unfolding. The Falcons played with speed, aggression, and fearlessness. Their defense pressured Brady relentlessly, forcing mistakes rarely seen from the future Hall of Famer. Linebackers Deion Jones and Vic Beasley flew across the field, while the offense executed with near perfection. Touchdown after touchdown, Atlanta pulled further ahead, shocking analysts and silencing critics who had predicted an easy Patriots victory. By the third quarter, the scoreboard told a story almost too incredible to believe. 28-3 in favor of the Falcons. It was a margin so large, against such an experienced opponent, that many considered the game effectively over. Commentators spoke openly about history being made. Fans in Atlanta celebrated in living rooms, bars, and packed streets, already imagining the Lombardi Trophy finally coming home. For a brief, intoxicating moment, it felt as though the city's long history of sports heartbreak had been erased. But football, like life, rarely follows a straight line. Somewhere between confidence and complacency, the rhythm of the game began to shift. Small decisions, almost invisible at first, started to carry enormous weight. Plays that once seemed automatic now stalled. Clock management became questionable. Instead of running the ball and draining time, the Falcons continued to throw, stopping the clock and giving New England opportunities they desperately needed. On defense, the relentless pressure softened just enough for Tom Brady to breathe. And when Brady is given time, history has shown what can happen. With every completed pass, the Patriots gained momentum, not just on the field, but psychologically. Brady's voice grew louder in the huddle. His confidence spread through the team like electricity. Julian Edelman made one of the most improbable catches in Super Bowl history, the ball seemingly destined to hit the turf before being trapped inches above the ground. That single moment felt symbolic, as if the laws of probability themselves had begun to bend. Slowly, painfully, the gap narrowed. A touchdown, then another. A successful two-point conversion. The Falcons, once unstoppable, now looked uncertain. The defense that had dominated earlier struggled to contain New England's no-huddle offense. Each Patriots score felt heavier than the last, not just adding points, but stripping away belief. By the time the clock expired in regulation, the unthinkable had happened. The score was tied, 28-28. For the first time in Super Bowl history, the game would be decided in overtime. What had once seemed impossible was now reality. On the sidelines, Falcons players stared into the distance, their expressions revealing disbelief, confusion, and fear. The certainty of victory had vanished, replaced by a creeping sense that something irreversible was unfolding. When the Patriots won the coin toss and marched down the field in overtime, the outcome felt almost inevitable. James White crossed the goal line, sealing a 34-28 victory for New England. Confetti fell. The Patriots celebrated another championship. Tom Brady embraced Bill Belichick, adding yet another ring to his already legendary career. For Atlanta, there was no consolation. What followed was not just disappointment, but something deeper and more enduring. For Falcons fans, Super Bowl LI became more than a lost game. It became a collective wound. The number 28-3 transformed overnight into a symbol of anguish, referenced endlessly by rivals and media alike. It was replayed, analyzed, and debated from every possible angle, yet no explanation ever felt sufficient. How could such dominance dissolve so completely? In the days and weeks that followed, Atlanta entered a period of quiet reflection. Coincidentally, this historic collapse occurred during the final stretch before the franchise's move into its new stadium. The Georgia Dome, which had witnessed triumphs and failures alike, was nearing the end of its life. The future lay just ahead, gleaming in steel and glass, promising a fresh start. Yet for many fans, the timing felt unsettling. A darker narrative began to take shape, whispered in conversations, and echoed across social media. Some suggested that the Falcons had spent all their luck that night in Houston. Others spoke half jokingly, half seriously, about curses and cosmic balance. Atlanta, they said, had dared to dream too big, and the cost was being paid in advance. The grandeur of the coming Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the billions invested, the promise of a new era, all of it seemed somehow tied to the heartbreak of Super Bowl LI. Whether superstition or symbolism, the emotional weight was undeniable. That game became a dividing line in the franchise's history, before and after February 5, 2017. It shaped how fans viewed success, how players carried expectations, and how the city itself approached hope. The Falcons would soon step into a new home, one of the most technologically advanced stadiums in the world. But they would do so carrying the memory of a night when victory slipped through their fingers at the very moment it seemed secure. Super Bowl LI was supposed to be the Falcons' crowning achievement. Instead, it became a cautionary tale, a reminder that in the NFL, no lead is safe, no destiny guaranteed, and no dream immune to collapse. And as Atlanta prepared to turn the page and open the doors to a new era, one question lingered in the hearts of its fans. Was this defeat merely a chapter in a larger story of redemption, or the price paid for daring to build something truly monumental? From the moment its doors opened to the world, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium rose in downtown Atlanta not only as an architectural marvel, but as a silent witness to a strange and often painful paradox. Built to symbolize a new era of dominance for the Atlanta Falcons, the stadium quickly established itself as one of the most important sporting venues on the planet. Yet year after year, between 2018 and 2023, it became increasingly clear that this modern colossus would more often serve as a stage for the glory of others rather than a sanctuary for its rightful hosannas. In January 2018, less than a year after its inauguration, the stadium hosted one of the most anticipated events in college football, the College Football Playoff National Championship. Atlanta once again found itself at the center of the American sports universe. Fans from across the country flooded the city, hotels filled, streets buzzed with anticipation, and the world's cameras were pointed directly at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. On the field, two giants of college football collided, the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Georgia Bulldogs. The game unfolded as an instant classic, filled with tension, drama, and unforgettable moments. When the final whistle blew, it was Alabama who emerged victorious, lifting the national championship trophy under the bright lights of Atlanta. The stadium had proven it could host greatness, but that greatness, once again, belonged to someone else. Just 1 year later, in February 2019, the irony deepened. The Mercedes-Benz Stadium was chosen to host Super Bowl LI, one of the most watched sporting events on Earth. This was supposed to be a symbolic turning point for the Falcons' faithful, the Super Bowl returning to Atlanta, now inside their dazzling new home. The city prepared itself for a global spectacle. Celebrities arrived. Corporate events filled the calendar, and the stadium stood immaculate, ready to showcase its cutting-edge technology and grandeur to the world. Yet when the game itself was played, the Atlanta Falcons were nowhere to be found. Instead, history repeated itself in a cruel and almost poetic way. The New England Patriots once again reached the pinnacle, defeating the Los Angeles Rams and claiming another Lombardi trophy. Tom Brady and Bill Belichick celebrated on the same field that just 2 years earlier in Houston had witnessed the collapse of Atlanta's greatest dream. For many Falcons fans, watching the Patriots celebrate inside their own stadium felt like reopening an unhealed wound. The building meant to mark rebirth had instead become a reminder of unfinished business and lingering pain. As the years progressed, the pattern refused to change. While the Mercedes-Benz Stadium continued to host concerts, soccer matches, college championships, and international events, the Falcons themselves struggled to find stability and identity. Seasons came and went with growing disappointment. Despite the roar of the crowd and the comfort of one of the most advanced stadiums ever built, victories were inconsistent, and playoff appearances became rare. Inside the organization, change became unavoidable. Dan Quinn, the head coach who had once led the Falcons to the brink of immortality in Super Bowl LI, was dismissed during the 2020 season after continued struggles. His departure marked the end of an era defined by early promise and ultimate heartbreak. With each coaching change, hope briefly returned, only to fade once more under the weight of unmet expectations. Perhaps the most emotional turning point came in 2022, when Matt Ryan, the face of the franchise for more than a decade, was traded away. Drafted in 2008, Ryan had carried Atlanta through its most competitive years, culminating in his MVP season in 2016. He had been the steady presence through highs and lows, beloved by fans for his professionalism and resilience. His departure felt like the closing of a long, painful chapter. It was no longer just about losing games. It was about saying goodbye to the last living connection to the dream that once seemed so close. Meanwhile, the stadium itself continued to thrive, just not for Atlanta. Visiting teams frequently achieved milestones on that field. Records were broken, championships were decided. Historic moments unfolded under the massive circular video board. The atmosphere was electric, the stage was perfect, and the celebrations were unforgettable. But almost always, the confetti fell for someone wearing unfamiliar colors. This recurring reality began to shape a deeper narrative among fans and observers alike. Conversations in sports bars, radio shows, and online forums took on a more symbolic tone. Some spoke half seriously about curses, others framed it as destiny or as the invisible cost of ambition. The Mercedes-Benz Stadium, they said, was too grand, too perfect, a structure that demanded sacrifice. It was as if the building itself preferred to honor outsiders, crowning strangers, while withholding glory from those who built it. Of course, rational minds pointed to football realities, rebuilding phases, roster decisions, injuries, and the unforgiving nature of the NFL. Yet sports are never purely rational. They live in emotion, memory, and shared belief. And within the collective consciousness of Atlanta fans, the stadium became something more than steel and glass. It became a symbol of contradiction, a place where history is constantly made, just not by the team that calls it home. By 2023, this perception had solidified. The Mercedes-Benz Stadium stood proudly as one of the most beautiful and technologically advanced arenas in the world. It brought global attention to Atlanta and cemented the city's status as a premier host for major events. And yet, for Falcons fans, it remained a reminder of a painful truth. Greatness often walks through its doors wearing another team's uniform. In the end, the stadium did exactly what it was designed to do. It became a global stage. But stages, by nature, do not choose their heroes. They simply amplify whoever is ready to seize the moment. And as the years passed, the haunting question lingered in the air of downtown Atlanta. When would the Mercedes-Benz Stadium finally witness its true owners rise, conquer, and celebrate on the same field that has crowned so many others? As the years pass, something subtle yet unmistakable has settled into the concrete, steel, and glass of the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. On game days, when fans make their way through the wide entrances and climb the ramps toward the stands, there is a feeling that cannot be measured by statistics or captured by cameras. It is not silence, because the stadium is loud. It is not apathy, because the loyalty of Atlanta Falcons fans has never disappeared. What lingers instead is a restrained emotion, a quiet tension that lives between hope and fear, shaped by memory and experience. Walking through the seating bowl during a Falcons home game today feels different than it once did. The crowd still wears red and black with pride. Families still arrive early. Long-time season ticket holders still sit in the same seats they have occupied for years. Yet the energy carries a certain caution. When Atlanta jumps out to an early lead, the celebration is real, but muted. Cheers rise, then quickly settle. No one fully exhales. No one assumes anything. Every advantage on the scoreboard feels temporary, fragile, as if history itself might lean in at any moment and demand its due. This collective restraint did not appear overnight. It was shaped slowly, carved by moments of heartbreak that fans carry with them like scars. Each missed tackle, each dropped pass, each sudden shift in momentum revives memories that refuse to fade. The echoes of past collapses seem to travel easily through the stadium's vast interior, bouncing off the massive circular video board and returning to the stands as uneasy reminders. For many supporters, belief has become something dangerous, powerful, but risky. And yet, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium remains one of the most admired sports venues in the world. From an architectural standpoint, it continues to be celebrated as a masterpiece of modern design. Its retractable roof, inspired by the mechanics of a camera lens, still draws admiration from engineers and visitors alike. Its advanced technology, sustainability features, and sheer scale place it among the elite arenas of the 21st century. On non-game days, tourists walk its corridors with awe, snapping photos and marveling at what Atlanta has built. The city itself continues to benefit from the stadium's global appeal. Major concerts, international soccer matches, and high-profile sporting events flow steadily through its doors. The confirmation that Atlanta will host matches during the 2026 FIFA World Cup only reinforced the stadium's status as a world-class stage. Once again, the eyes of the globe will turn toward downtown Atlanta, toward the same structure that has already welcomed millions from around the world. But for Falcons fans, global recognition has never been the issue. The question that lingers is far more personal, far more emotional. When will the balance finally shift? When will fortune stop collecting its invisible tax? Or, more unsettling still, has that price already been paid in full, sealed away in moments no one dares to name out loud? Over time, an unspoken narrative has taken root, not officially acknowledged, never written into headlines, but quietly shared among those who have lived every chapter of this story. Some call it superstition. Others dismiss it as coincidence. Yet it persists, because it offers language for a feeling that logic alone cannot explain. The idea of an unspoken curse is less about belief in fate and more about the human need to make sense of repeated disappointment. When patterns repeat often enough, they begin to feel intentional, even when they are not. The relationship between the Atlanta Falcons and the Mercedes-Benz Stadium has become symbolic of something larger than football. It reflects the cost of ambition, the burden of expectation, and the emotional weight that comes with daring to build something monumental. Arthur Blank's vision was never small. From the moment he committed billions of dollars to create a stadium unlike any other, the promise was clear. Atlanta would no longer chase greatness. It would host it. It would define it. And in many ways, that promise was fulfilled. The stadium did become a global landmark. It did place Atlanta at the center of major sporting conversations. It did elevate the city's status on the world stage. But within that success lies a paradox that fans cannot ignore. The structure delivered everything it was meant to deliver, except the one thing that mattered most to the people who fill its seats wearing Falcons jerseys. This is why the silence in certain moments feels so loud. When the Falcons line up for a crucial third down late in the game, the crowd rises, but there is hesitation in the air. When a field goal could seal a win, some fans look away, others hold their breath. Applause still comes, but it carries tension, shaped by the memory of what has been lost before. The stadium amplifies sound, but it also amplifies memory. The story unfolding here is not simply about wins and losses. It is about psychology. It is about how repeated heartbreak changes the way people hope. Atlanta fans have not stopped believing. They have learned to believe carefully. Their loyalty has not weakened. It has hardened, shaped by endurance rather than expectation. Supporting the Falcons inside the Mercedes-Benz Stadium has become an act of faith, not confidence. In this sense, the stadium itself feels almost alive, not because of superstition, but because of the emotions poured into it over time. Every great venue absorbs history. Every cheer, every groan, every stunned silence becomes part of its identity. The Mercedes-Benz Stadium carries the weight of grand promises and unfinished stories. It is a place where glory always seems close enough to touch, yet never guaranteed. a place where greatness is possible, but never free. That is the quiet truth fans wrestle with each season. Success here feels earned only through suffering. Celebration feels conditional. And until the Falcons finally rise and claim a defining moment within these walls, the sense of unresolved tension will remain. The stadium will continue to shine. The city will continue to host the world. But for those who truly care, the story will feel incomplete. Because the tale of the Atlanta Falcons and the Mercedes-Benz Stadium is not just a sports narrative. It is a human one. It is about ambition colliding with reality, about dreams built on a massive scale and the invisible costs that sometimes accompany them. It is about how hope can survive disappointment, even when it learns to speak more quietly. And perhaps that is what makes this story so compelling. The glory always feels within reach. The breakthrough always feels one season away. The promise still lives, suspended in the air beneath that remarkable roof, waiting, watching, demanding patience. If you are drawn to stories like this, stories that go beyond the scoreboard, that explore the hidden layers behind iconic places, legendary moments, and the unseen prices of greatness, this is only the beginning. Subscribe to the channel now. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter, and share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe the price has already been paid? Or is the true moment of redemption still ahead?